But have you come across scenarios where there's significant customizations required?
As a product company, we have figured out a way to not get stuck into that problem.
So this is not a problem for you. Let's just do that.
Yes.
And so when you started, were there any existing solutions in that domain? And if yes, then where were they lagging?
They were, of course, system of record that would capture a claim and that would help a user process that claim. But they were also in very early stage, especially in India.
When we talk about the value proposition around automation and reducing manpower, have you seen more resonance in the foreign markets like US and UAE versus India?
That's a very good point. India has traditionally been one of the hardest markets to sell into. In Western countries as well as in Middle East, they are a lot more open because cost of labor is extremely high. Although they do outsource a lot of their work to India and Philippines, and they are able to get to that lower cost number as well. At the end of the day, a client that is going to give you their time and their money cares the most about you solving his problem, irrespective of the resume that you carry or the patents that you carry. It has to solve their problem. SalesRobo.ai has an inbuilt database of 200 million prospects. So that is where our customers are really benefiting. First step to building anything.
Imagine industries like insurance and healthcare, long viewed as traditional and resistant to change, being reimagined by the power of AI and DeepTech. Now, this isn't a futuristic vision. It is happening now, and it is changing how we think about innovation at scale. So, welcome back to Build With Shreya, the podcast where ideas and stories inspire you to build something extraordinary. Today, we are joined by Sandeep Khurana, CEO at Preceptiviti and SalesRobo.ai, a global leader and visionary who has spent 2 decades at the intersection of innovation, business, and technology. He is an alumnus of IIT Delhi, IIM Lucknow, Wharton Executive Program, and has a special expertise in using AI to unlock value in complex and highly regulated industries. From writing code at Infosys to leading the enterprise strategy at UnitedHealth Group and to now building groundbreaking AI ventures in insurance and sales with Preceptiviti and SalesRobo.ai, his career spans some of the world's most critical transformations in tech. In today's conversation, we'll dive into what it takes to innovate in a highly regulated industry, how to lead deep tech startups through ever-changing global markets, and what advice can we have for entrepreneurs who are ready to build for tomorrow's global economy. So let's dive right in and let's welcome Sandeep Khurana to Build With Shreya. Hi Sandeep, welcome to Build With Shreya. We're so glad to have you here.
Shreya, thank you for having me on your podcast. I must say that in a short period of time, your podcast has become a really useful source of business insights and entrepreneurship lessons. I'm really glad to be here today and look forward to talking to you.
Awesome. And I was thoroughly inspired by your journey while I was looking at it. You started as a software engineer at Infosys, went on to more strategy roles at Sapient, at Cognizant, at the UnitedHealth Group. And so, this combination of technical depth along with business strategy, I want to understand what were your lessons and specific moments that defined that journey, and, how did you take those steps on your journey?
My journey was pretty organic at points in time, and then there were some decisions that I made that eventually became what I am today. Started as a software engineer, really writing code for Internet 1.0.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
Been a while, been a minute.
And
right?
which language was that?
It was actually Java, JDK 1.0 that I don't know if anyone knows anymore. But first version of Java, we were pretty much finding bugs in the core platform every day. We were creating foundational infrastructure for lots of internet layers at that time. And it was an awesome learning journey. As I got deeper into it, I realized that, first step to building anything is actually to conceptualize what should be built. That really provoked my curiosity, and that is where product management happened. Once I did that, I learned that product management eventually is tied to business strategy, and that is how the entire thing came about. I've been very fortunate because once I started my own company, everything that I learned along this journey helped me create what we are today.
The product Sherlock, I'm really curious to know about the birth of Sherlock. First of all, where did the name come from? Was it the book? And the other thing is, I mean, the sector, like InsurTech, it's used to manual processes, manual reviews. So how was the journey like? Like, what did the earliest version of Sherlock look like, and what inspired its evolution?
I had been working in health insurance sector for almost a decade before I started Perceptivity. And I had first-hand experience of the challenges that you just described with health claims, health insurance. The process is so manual. It is broken. It impacts patients at their biggest hour of need. And I was wondering what can make it better for the patient, for the hospital, for the insurance company, for all three of them. And that is where, as artificial intelligence and machine learning started becoming really production ready, I found a white space where I can use this knowledge of health claims, deploy machine learning and artificial intelligence on top of it to really identify and create value for all key stakeholders in health ecosystem. Right. So that was the birth of Sherlock. The name, we are finding anomalies, we are finding patterns, right? So what
Oh,
better than
okay.
the big master, Sherlock Holmes? So
Awesome.
that is where the name comes from.
Right, and I hear that the platform is has a very powerful accuracy, almost 99% with
Yes.
health claims processing, and with AI, the initial algorithms or training data or the infrastructure really sets the DNA for the platform.
Mhm.
So how did you make that choice? The technologies that you developed Sherlock on.
Mhm. Yeah, you asked about the earliest version of Sherlock. It was actually just several lines of code running on what is known as Jupyter Notebook.
Mhm.
It's just a
Of
coding
course.
environment, throwing output on an Excel workbook. As rudimentary in its look and feel and how it was set up as that. What was good about it though was the outcome that it was generating. When I showed that outcome to a bunch of C suite executives in the largest insurance companies in the country, they were really excited about it, irrespective of the rudimentary setup. And they felt that they can really put it to use. That is what gave birth to the company that we are today. The outlook that and the outcomes that the platform generated.
So somehow, I mean, I'm assuming you might
Uh-huh.
correct me. Like while you were at United Health Group, you might have seen these challenges and sort of seen these problems around yourself, where you maybe felt that they needed some fixing. I mean, could you tell us a little bit about that? Was it the case? Was it some other case? Like, how did it sort of
So
start?
I had quite a bit of experience working on healthcare claims for international markets during my work life at United Health Group. I had personal experience of handling claims for my mother here in India. And I saw how broken it is, whether it is here or anywhere else in the world. There are so many challenges. The time that it takes to get your claim approved, get it processed, is enormous. And you are sitting in discharge lobby of a hospital just waiting for your claim to get approved. You've been sent out of the room. You're just recovering from a surgery, uh, and hospital needs the room for another patient. So you are sitting in discharge lobby for 8 hours waiting for your claim to come through. That really struck a chord somewhere that this needs fixing, and which is where we really put in our effort, knowledge, and learnings to build a solution that reduces that wait time, that helps patients in their biggest hour of need.
And so, when you started, were there any existing solutions in that domain? And if yes, then where were they lagging?
There weren't any solutions, I would say, that would look at claim processing as we did. There were, of course, system of record that would capture a claim and that would help a user process that claim. But they were also in very early stage, especially in India. There were no intelligent systems on sitting on top of the system of record that would really help the processor take a decision quickly or just simply automate that decision. That is what we brought in.
Mhm.
That intelligence into claim processing cycle is what Sherlock is all about.
So, I mean, so you are providing value to the end patient. right? You're also providing value to the insurance companies,
Right.
right? So in terms of providing value to the insurance companies, I mean, when we sort of go to them and they're always looking for the ROI. I mean, what are we getting out of it? So apart from the shorter waiting time, which is more of a value to the patients, what is the value that you were able to propose to the insurance companies or the CXOs of the insurance companies who are actually using the product?
Yeah. So actually, a number of things. The first and foremost, shorter waiting times, which improves your customer satisfaction scores. That for all of them was the primary, that we want our customers to be really satisfied. Beyond that, bringing in automation and reduced requirement of manpower, that really helped their numbers, because ultimately it has to be justified by real hard numbers as well. Finally, bringing in consistency in their processing, because once you have an intelligent system looking at a transaction, they look at all the transactions equally.
Yes.
Versus a human, and each human being that is working on that team has different level of skill and capability and different level of pressures at that point in time. So their decision making varies. Absolutely. Depending on all of these factors. Whereas an intelligent AI system is always consistent in all its decision making.
Right. So you're reducing the human error, basically.
Yes.
So in terms of, when we talk about the value proposition around automation or reducing manpower, have you seen more resonance in the foreign markets like US and UAE versus India? Because I think the cost of labor or the cost of people is differing in all of these different geographies. So how do you see that? And did you see any difference in reception in terms of your product with these different markets?
That's a very good point. India has traditionally been one of the hardest markets to sell into.
I personally feel challenged. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
A bunch of products, yeah.
Right. Because they'd say that your AI system costs so much, and I can hire 5 people for
Because
that cost.
even if you look at the current cost of GPUs and TPUs,
Yeah.
if you talk about the ROI, it's cheaper for them to have resources.
Yeah.
Human resources do that rather than the AI system for now. Although long term, it might have higher ROIs, considering that the cost for the GPUs will also go down and the systems will be built. But do they have that long term vision in India yet?
I would say many of them do. And it's also that forces us to find that ROI on, yes, comparing with really inexpensive human labor is always not going to work. So what benefit can we provide that a human or any number of humans cannot? And when you talk about customer experience, when you talk about quick turnarounds, when you talk about consistency in those quick turnarounds, and you show the error reduction and the cost benefit of that error reduction,
yes.
That is where you build your ROI case from, rather than replacing a human.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that is what helped us.
Absolutely. I think the value proposition in terms of reduced waiting time and reduced human error. Yeah, I think these two would probably be good value propositions for a geography like India.
Yeah.
And probably the second point around automation might work well in the Western countries or even Middle East, for that example. Yeah.
So in Western countries as well as in Middle East, they are a lot more open, because cost of labor is extremely high. Although they do outsource a lot of their work to India and to Philippines, and they are able to get to that lower cost number as well. But there, the transaction value itself is so high that whether it is a human or a technology that is still maybe slightly more expensive than even the human, it still makes sense, just as is, because the cost of transaction that the technology is working on is extremely high. Right? So building business case is easier. Secondly, they recognize a lot more the value of consistency, because their customers' error tolerance is a lot lower than the error tolerance that we have in India. Right? We are okay if we are getting delayed. Right? There, the customer would move to a competitor.
Right.
So based on these factors, their ability to adopt new solutions is really higher.
So next thing I want to ask you about a recent venture, which is into intelligent sales, like SalesRobo.ai. It seems like a natural extension to your already existing journey, with enterprise systems, data, AI, and sort of using it together to solve a real business problem. Sales is considered very like high touch point, human heavy function, but with growing number of products, it needs to like scale more smartly and like faster. So, what were those moments that pushed you into solving this business need, and was there any specific pain points that you went through, and you felt okay, things need to change?
SalesRobo.ai is an organic growth from our own pain point. At Perceptiviti, when we try to run our own campaigns, we would start a campaign, but somewhere in the middle, the campaign would lose steam because we got too busy doing other things. So we forgot to follow up. We forgot to really continue to identify newer and newer prospects, and it happened time and again and again. 2 years back, when ChatGPT came on the scene, there were lots of use cases being tried, and we thought that why not we try solving our own problem and automate using an LLM, automate this entire process using an LLM, which was the birth of Sales Robo. Really focused on solving our own problem, and then we figured that it's become so useful to us that it could become a product in its own standing.
Right. I mean, there's a lot of buzz around AI for sales. I mean, I've myself come across so many solutions in this domain. And I recently read a McKinsey report which stated that companies using AI for sales, see faster prospecting, more qualified leads, shortened, sales cycle. But it all comes down to implementing with real precision. So, what are your thoughts on that?
So, what I believe is that intelligent sales really has three components. The first one is intelligent prospecting, right? You identify your ideal customer profile and you're able to really focus on the needs of that customer profile. So, that's one. Second is intelligent messaging, that you're able to create messages that really hit a chord with your ICP. And third is intelligent outreach.
Right.
You don't want to overwhelm them, yet you want to be persistent, right? You want to do it at a frequency, at a discipline that it continues to happen even when you're sleeping. So that is what we believe is the bedrock of intelligent sales overall, and that is also the bedrock on which Sales Robo platform is designed.
Right. And so, like, while teams are using SalesRobo.ai, have you seen any results with better lead intelligence or shortened deal cycles? How has the result been?
Yes. So, the results have been very encouraging. What our customers tell us is the same thing that I told you, the problem that we had. We would start, very enthusiastically running a sales campaign, but somewhere we would not be able to get the right prospect data, right? So we would just make a compromise on let's start with whatever we have. Then we would get started, and in the middle we'll get busy with other work. So this just goes to an unnatural pause. So that is where our customers are really benefiting. SalesRobo.ai has an inbuilt database of 200 million prospects. You can, from this vast data, the users select their ideal customer profiles, right? Then on top of that, so this is intelligent prospecting. Then our LLMs help them create intelligent messages for this customer profile. And finally, fully automated and planned outreach helps them create campaigns for months in advance. And these campaigns continue to happen even when they're sleeping and they're busy with other work. This really helps top of the funnel activities, right? From prospecting to qualifying a lead. Once a lead gets qualified and your prospect starts engaging with you, you could choose to have a human sales rep really take over at that point in time and provide the high touch that you were mentioning, and make it really personalized. That is our approach to the platform.
I mean, with all of the AI tools, now it's getting quite crowded. There's a very fine line between automation and noise, right? So, how do you make sure that the user is able to get the value without getting overwhelmed?
And when you say user, you mean the user of our platform, or the prospect on the other side of it?
The user of your platform.
So for the user of our platform, there is significant value, because look, what used to take them 5 SDRs, 5 human SDRs, right, trying to do all of these 3 tasks that I mentioned to you, now they can do it in a matter of a few clicks. And they can do it they can set up campaigns for months in advance. And they know that the process that for which they had to have 5 people running those campaigns now will continue to happen on an automated basis. I've set it up today, it will run tomorrow, it will run next week, it will run next month as well. If I need to make any changes based on my learning through this period of time, I can do that. But if I get busy with other things, this would still keep happening. And once a prospect starts engaging with me,
then of course
yes,
you can take it up, not a problem.
Absolutely.
I think, personally, with my sales team as well, once you're engaging with the client, it's not a problem.
Yeah.
You can show them things, but I think it's mostly the work before that. That's the
Yes.
grunt work. You have to go through a mass of data and sort of, just reach out, and a lot of work for
Yep.
sure. And when we talk about UAE as a market, it's the most ambitious market when it comes to AI and digital innovation right now. And, I had done podcasts earlier where guests told me about differences in the Indian market and UAE as a target market in terms of how government approaches tech adoption, how the ecosystem is very bold when it comes to adopting new technology and change. So what is it that attracted you to the UAE market in the first place?
All of the factors that you just mentioned, there is a significant appetite for trying out new tech solutions, innovative solutions. There is also an openness to invest in those solutions without, at the first go proving a significant ROI or cost benefit analysis. As long as you can show that you've got something, you've got a new way to address an old recurring pain, and that may actually help. Government as well as enterprises are willing to give you a chance and try it out and pay you for it, right? So your job becomes that much more easy. The other factors that are really in favor of UAE market is that while in terms of ability to pay for a solution, that's as good as anywhere else in the world, but your cost structure is much lower than it is in the West.
Of course.
So it is the best of East and West.
Yeah, so you can get
right?
a sustainable competitive advantage just from that cost difference as well.
Yes.
Because, the costs are lower and the pricing can be higher. So you have a significant play
Yes.
in between. Right. So one more question around, I think in the US, while, I have my own startup, I've seen other startups. And when you talk about solving the same problem in a new fashion, how people sort of exemplify that is through saying, okay, we have applied for a patent, we have an IP, and things like that. But again, it becomes very structural because it takes a lot of time. It might take a lot of research. Is that different in the UAE? How do you demonstrate newness of solving a solution in the UAE?
Having a patent really helps you get in the door, because there is a social proof that you've done something. But obviously, as you said, it takes a long time. There is a lot of paperwork involved. And a lot of times, entrepreneurs, when they're starting up, may not have neither that much time nor patience to take up something like that. You have to just figure out a way to get across the door. Because once you've crossed that, nobody really cares, what patents do you have or what paper do you carry. People are really interested in seeing how you can demonstrate that you can alleviate the pain that they are going through. If they see a demonstration and some encouraging signs, they would almost always give it a try.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I've seen working is, getting that first client in.
Yeah.
Who sees how this will solve their pain. And so once you've got that client, you get an opportunity to demonstrate what it can do. And then you have an example, which you can, sort of go out with. So I think that's one thing. Another way, if in case, you don't have an IP or do not have a patent, but, you can demonstrate newness in a industry by actually executing it on ground.
Absolutely.
So getting that opportunity, that first person to believe in your solution, or convince that one person there.
Even with a patent, you would still have to get that one person
That's true. I mean,
and
at
convince
the end
that
of the
one
day,
person.
yes.
Because at the end of the day, a client that is going to give you their time and their money, uh, cares the most about you solving his problem, irrespective of the resume that you carry or the patents that you carry. Can you or can you not solve the problem that they have? And if you can, you may have the ugliest solution. I told you our solution was just a Jupyter notebook, throwing outcomes on an Excel, and clients wholeheartedly accepted it. It has to solve their problem,
Correct.
and it has to ideally solve it in a different way for you to move quickly.
But if I talk about the kind of clients we have in the UAE, government is your client most of the times, or like even if you talk about Emirates or Etisalat, they're all sort of linked to the government. So ultimately, you're selling to the government. So how does that work?
We don't sell as much directly to the government.
Okay.
We sell to large insurance companies. Some of them have significant government ownership, but they look pretty much like any other private corporation anywhere in the world. They are looking for solution yesterday that gives them ROI today, right? So as long as you can demonstrate that, they would get you in, and they would ask you to, why have you not completed it yet? Right, the moment you walk in.
So one more question around, off the shelf solutions. So probably by now, Preceptiviti, Sherlock might be a solution which is sort of, ready for deployment. You can just say, okay, this works, and you just take it off the shelf. But have you come across scenarios where there's significant customizations required, and that customization would not probably deliver as much accuracy as the ready product will, and that would take some time, and so the ROI will take some time, and so. How has that kind of a scenario worked out for you when talking to clients for custom configurable solutions, customized solutions, or new implementations?
Look, both our product, whether it is Sherlock or SalesRobo, are designed for particular problem sets and particular markets. When I talk about Sherlock, it works on health claims. Health claims, at the core of it, are common across the world. A patient goes to a hospital, and hospital sends a bill to the insurer. So those fundamentals stay the same. But beyond that, it is extremely market oriented. So we end up creating solutions for a market. We end up creating a version of Sherlock for India. We end up creating a version of Sherlock for the UAE. But once we have created that market level versions, between one insurer and the other, there isn't that much difference. So our customization requirement is bare minimum to nothing. And we are able to deliver ROI in a matter of weeks, not months. Right? Which is where we get the confidence back from customer that yes, this is delivering something. There are still, some way to go before that gets totally stabilized. But the proof of the pudding is that we've had clients that have been using the platform for 6 years. Here in India, for 5 years in the UAE, and they continue, using it there, and they see it as a part of their core processes. So that's on Sherlock. SalesRobo.ai solves a problem, thankfully, which is not in a highly regulated space. Of course, we have to take care of GDPR, CCPA, etc., and other data privacy laws. But it is solving a problem of how can a seller reach out to a buyer in a most cost-effective and most non-intrusive way. That's a consistent problem across the world.
Absolutely.
So that really is zero customization. It just gets deployed, starts working in a matter of 1 minute. Right.
So this is not a problem for you. Let's just say that.
Yes. Or we have, look, as a product company, we have figured out a way to not get stuck into that problem.
Probably. Right? I'm sure you must have come across those scenarios, but you made
sure
that you
created standardizations that it works. It works with minor, turn of flip of switches here or there. It just works.
Right? So, why in your journey to expanding in the UAE, what were the different milestones? What are the different challenges in scaling up in that geography? If you can, tell us about certain moments and occasions. Sure.
So the first challenge was getting the first customer. We did not have a UAE version, right? And proving to that customer that we have a wonderful solution that really works, which is where being from India actually helps. Because UAE is a potpourri of people from all over the world. There are 40% of the people in the UAE are South Asians. Out of them, 35% are Indians. Right? There are Europeans, there are Americans, there are pretty much from all across the world. But The benefit that you carry as an Indian entrepreneur is that when you're picking up the phone to talk to someone, they already know that you're a tech person and you are a reasonably well, endowed tech person because you're coming from India. So that benefit you carry with you, and then you say that I have created this amazing solution and I have deployed it at some of the largest names here. They are really curious to figure it out. What have you done? They're also interested in, giving you a chance, a small chance that, okay, let's try out. Don't take too much of my time, but show me what you can do. So that's what we did, right? And we were fortunate enough that the chance that we got worked and converted to a large, massive project, and we've been continuing on that for years now. Once we got the first one, then the second happens, third happens, it becomes organic, right?
There have been huge bets in AI. Microsoft has invested over $1.5 billion in G42, which is a UAE based firm. And so, what do you think other traditional tech hubs can learn from UAE in terms of growing their deep tech ecosystem?
UAE is uniquely placed in where they are, uh, in multiple dimensions. First and foremost, they have the leadership that is really keen to be on the forefront of technology. Two, they have power to invest. They have pockets to invest. And three, they are a very new country, so they do not have a lot of legacy enterprises or a lot of legacy systems to clean up before they can, move on to the latest and greatest. And they actually use that in a very good way. They've also been heavily investing in trying to attract the best talent from across the world by providing amazing public infrastructure, amazing startup incentives to really help the ecosystem get going. They have extremely favorable regulatory environment. These are the lessons that anyone and everyone can learn from the UAE in having the appetite and persisting through that endeavor by providing a favorable environment to the people in that ecosystem.
When we talk about insurance and healthcare, these have traditionally been very slow to adopt new technology. But with AI, we see speedy claims processing, we see risk management, we see customer personalization. So we are standing at a major inflection point. And I want to understand from you, what are the untapped opportunities you see in these sectors when it comes to like AI disruption overall?
You are absolutely right that insurance and healthcare have been slow. Uh, and there is a reason for that. These are highly regulated industries. They handle a lot of sensitive customer data. They also are working on use cases which are extremely critical and difficult. A patient is ill. That's as critical as it gets, and that is why they, before adopting a new solution, they really want to thoroughly test it out, that it's not going to impact any of the key stakeholders or any of the key process elements. And they want to move forward, but maintaining the privacy, maintaining the experience of all stakeholders involved. And that is why they are very careful and deliberate in the steps that they take. When we started in this space 5 years ago, I doubt that there were many companies using AI solutions. But today, just in 5 years, I believe that every significant insurance company is using AI in some form or shape, and they are extremely curious and engaged to further increase their own level of adoption. Regulatory framework is beginning to take notice, I would say, and is trying to become supportive. They're trying to understand what does it mean in terms of the benefits that it can give to all the stakeholders, whether it is the patient, the hospital, the insurance company, or the larger society as well. And they're also trying to figure out what are the right sort of regulations to promote delivery of that benefit while protecting all of these stakeholders as well. I see a lot more adoption of AI in this sector in the coming years. There are several opportunities that the sector presents for automation using AI, for delivering more accurate results. If you talk about healthcare, on radiology, not using AI today is almost like an offense, right? To read radiology scans. That's how good it has become. Similarly, on claims, not using AI, there would probably be very few insurance companies in the world that are not using any level of AI on claims. I see that percolating on the insurance side to underwriting to all sorts of operations to customer outreach using platforms like SalesRobo. Similarly, on healthcare side, I see more and more use cases, not just radiology but lab and everything else getting positively impacted by advent of AI.
When you talk about not using AI in certain fields, almost as an offense, how do you see the regulatory setup country-wise being so different? How would the countries be able to be ahead of each other? Now, for example, if there's GDPR in Europe, but different laws in UAE, sort of protecting the ecosystem as well, but then the solutions will also be restrictive to how effective they are, right, in these spaces. So how is that going to evolve? Certain countries are more protective, certain a little less. Probably the AI solutions will be a little better than the others. So will they fall behind? Like, how do you see this sort of unfolding?
I think the advent of AI is as fundamental a technology change as mankind has seen in the history. People who are creating these solutions do not completely understand themselves how this is going to impact and change the world. Forget about regulators. A lot of times regulators may not even have the capability or the training to be able to create regulations for something which no one has seen. So there would be a period of everyone learning and figuring out what this new change really means. Some countries would be really controlled and tight. Some countries would be extremely open. And eventually they would learn the pitfalls of one method or the other. And hopefully, my hope is that we would find a balance soon somewhere. And each country would define that balance for themselves based on what their citizens want.
Right. I was reading in a recent Deloitte study that a company, Lemonade, is able to improve the claims processing by almost 25%. Now, my question is that is faster always better? Or, or companies are overlooking a lot of risks when they're using AI so aggressively?
Yeah, there are pitfalls. There are significant pitfalls along the way. You gave me one positive example that you read. If you do some more research, or maybe you've already done that, you would find that another large insurance companies was heavily fined by a regulator for AI-based decisions on claims. So that is the other side of it, right? You're moving fast, but you're also making mistakes. You don't even know that they are mistakes, but they impacted someone, that someone complained and you got fined. And that is how everyone learns based on what those mistakes are. And it is imperative that everyone does learn based on that because it is a new thing. Nobody really knows everything about it. And as we learn as people in countries, working on these areas, we know what is right and what is not right. We also start knowing about those boundaries, and we can create solutions that function well within those defined boundaries.
So starting a company is one thing, but starting a company and scaling it in a highly regulated space is a very different bet. So what are the myths that you feel are existing in scaling AI startups in a regulated field that need to be broken? And second, what are the things that entrepreneurs tend to miss? While they're sort of just entering a highly regulated field and they're creating AI products for it. What are some things they can look out for?
Regulations are pretty well defined in most countries. At least the hard boundaries are really well defined, and they're almost always around data protection. So, as a company, founders, when they're starting off, that is one thing that they need to be very, very clear and cognizant about, that the boundaries around data protection in a regulated space like healthcare, where you're handling sensitive personal data, is extremely high, and there is little tolerance of crossing that boundary. That is what they should set up as the core foundation of their company. But once they've done that, and once they have created a tooling around it, they just have to continue practicing it. It becomes a part of life. It does not really impact you in your day-to-day work. It does not impact your growth either. So you have to be cognizant of the hard boundaries, and you have to put in tooling and mechanism to stay within those boundaries. That's as simple as that.
According to a 2024 PwC survey, almost 84% of the people had higher concern around data privacy than 5 years ago.
Mhm.
Especially when we talk about sectors like insurance and healthcare, where data is like more personal, earning customer trust becomes really important. And
Mhm.
once it's broken, you can't really get it back. So what are the steps that you as building solutions in AI have taken to build that customer trust very early on?
Mhm. So, building that customer trust is about being consistent in your messaging, that you are able to demonstrate to them that you really know what the hard boundaries are, and that you have put in mechanism in place to never cross those boundaries, and make sure that anyone and everyone working in your team is aware of those boundaries and never crosses them. It's just about that. So and then you be consistent about that messaging with your customer and with your entire team, because when your customer is talking to a team member, they would still get the same message, and that is what builds their trust, that what I heard from the founder is what I'm hearing from everyone in the team, and this is really being followed in the team. You demonstrate it day in and day out, month on month, year on year, and that's what gets you the trust.
Any hard boundary that comes to your mind that you really set it up in your team and then sort of deliver
Yes, about customer data, that it is sacrosanct, it's private, it stays in only in the environment where it is supposed to be.
Mhm.
And only people who are working on that would have access for that limited time to that environment.
There's increasing public awareness around data privacy, and it's turning more from passive to active. And we are seeing people asking more questions around data transparency, expecting more answers, and they're switching brands based on privacy practices. And so
Mhm.
there's a very fine line between personalization and intrusion at this point. And with AI evolving so fast, I mean, we earlier used to see one tool every 6 months, and now it's like every week we're seeing one new
Yeah.
tool. The regulatory framework is not really being able to catch up with that kind of a pace. So do you think as companies, there is a moral compass that they should have in terms of setting high standards when it comes to data privacy practices right from the start, even before the law comes?
Mhm. It is extremely critical, because and you are absolutely right. Consumers are were really passive around data privacy concerns or data security. But as AI started demonstrating the outcomes that it is doing now with deepfakes, etc., people started becoming really sensitive around their data, their persona, their voice. All of that can be fake today. Having a moral compass around your own data privacy laws and defining your own boundaries is actually a very tricky thing, because when you're at the forefront of innovation, there is a very fine line between a justified use and a non-justified use. And if there is no use, then there is no progress as well, right?
Right.
So all of these three have to be really carefully approached, because as you rightly said, there is no regulation because regulator doesn't know. You also don't know because you are really creating something that did not exist. Uh, but once you have created it, you would instinctively probably know, based on where you're from, your upbringing, your education, of what is a right use and wrong use, and that is the call that each company should take in ensuring that whatever we are creating is eventually morally right and benefits people and benefits society and does not harm anyone.
So there's a big conversation around GDPR in the Europe and then HIPAA in the US and then stricter data laws even in the UAE. So how do you think new entrepreneurs should navigate these regulatory frameworks globally, because now they're building for the world?
Mhm. Again, it's very simple. Understanding those guardrails and putting them as hard boundaries within your operating environment. Once you do that, and make sure that you consistently keep reinforcing that message with your team and with your stakeholders, whether they're clients, they're suppliers, you continue reinforcing that message consistently, right? And that's all. It is not something that should keep you awake at night once you put in this basic mechanism in place. And then you can focus on your growth, you can focus on building and creation.
What is the most common question you've been asked from your customers regarding data privacy?
Is my data going to be used for any reason outside of this purpose? Most common question, and we have to address it. We've been addressing it for
Not
6
that
years.
where is the data hosted?
That as well, but that is a simple answer. Yes,
Yeah,
we are
of course.
regular.
We can do it on your cloud.
So that is not the concerning question, because there they know that there is regulation, and if we are out of regulation, then we are going to get strictly penalized by powers that be. The bigger question is, are you going to use my data to become intelligent yourselves, and then give that intelligence away to my competitor?
So how do you answer?
We don't use it.
Okay.
We actually don't. Right. Wherever we have to create intelligence in our platform, we invest our own time, money, resources to create that synthetic data.
Of course.
Right. But for us, these are hard boundaries. We don't cross them. Now, with our new product, which is SalesRobo, it is in a much more open environment.
Of course.
Much lesser private data, because
sales, yeah,
right. We do not have any
insurance or healthcare.
We don't have access to people's healthcare history or their claim history or anything. So it's not really sensitive data, and there the ability for us to innovate and create solutions is a lot higher as a result of that, right? Because whatever we learn on one transaction can simply translate to the next. Right. And there the pace of innovation as a result becomes faster.
So what is your advice to entrepreneurs who are building in the deep tech, where probably the education curve for the users is as much as a challenge as the tech itself?
It's truly a hard problem. Deep tech has longer gestation period. As a result, it requires a lot longer staying power. It requires deep capabilities. It requires funding, right? And it requires eventually user education to your own self as well, because you don't know whatever you're creating, you don't know what all uses it may have, right? So the biggest thing here is the staying power, because to figure all of these out, you need to be in the game long enough, and you need to create that staying power for your company, for your own personal self as well, because you have a life and a family to run.
Of course.
As long as you can stay, and as long as you can get the right set of capability in your team, eventually you will find that sweet spot of success.
So I came across this Outlook business article today, which asks a very tough question: that why hasn't India seen any unicorn deep tech startups yet? And it points out that India is still slow to innovate. There's a massive funding gap. Like since 2015, in India, deep tech startups have only raised about 7.6 billion, as compared to China, which is at 72 billion and 402 billion in the US. So with all the talent and startup energy, what is really holding us back?
So deep tech, as I said, has much longer gestation period, requires deep R&D capabilities. You need to have a much higher appetite for failure, and you need government support. We had actually all of this in paucity in India. Things are changing. People are recognizing the fact that Indians have built amazing technology world over. Why can we not bring that R&D capability here? Why can we not have a longer staying power and being able to deal with that longer gestation periods? Why can't we just try? Even if it doesn't work, we would have tried going to space. That in itself is amazing, and people are recognizing that. People eventually, if this endeavor doesn't work, people who I'm going to work with recognize and appreciate that there are a lot more job openings today that say that we need an ex startup founder to come in for this, right? So things are changing, and that gives a lot of encouragement to those those nutheads who are going to try it out in future.
Right.
And I'm really optimistic that we would soon see a number of deep tech startups coming from India that are creating foundational technology that changes the world.
So the global InsurTech CAGR is stated as 6.19% expected until 2033. Are we moving fast enough?
Every day we are moving faster than the previous day, is what I would say, right? Insurance industry, as I told you, is always very deliberate in taking the next step. But most companies have started deploying, new AI-driven solutions. They have started seeing outcomes from those solutions. They have started seeing benefits to their business, to their customers, and to their broader ecosystem. That is increasing and accelerating the pace of adoption. I see it happening rapidly in next few years. much faster than what we saw in the last, let's say, 5 years.
So deep tech startup versus SaaS startups. Which ones do you think are more resilient in economic downturns?
In an ideal scenario, economic downturns should have no impact on creating foundational technology. As a result, they should really have very little impact on deep tech startups, because deep tech startups are focused on creating something that is foundationally new,
More like an antibiotic
more like
rather
an
than a
antibiotic.
vitamin,
Right,
probably.
right. Something that just did not exist. So for that, they're probably not even yet selling it. They probably do not even yet have a revenue. Or if their revenue is coming, it's going to come from a large user like the government that wants to send new types of satellite to space, right, or to Mars. So they should not get that impacted by the downturn, because they're selling or they're creating something very different. For SaaS startups, market downturns would have an impact, because your customers' ability to pay to buy your solution may get impacted as a result of these downturns. But again, it depends on what kind of SaaS startup you are, what problem you're solving. If you're in the space that does well in a downturn, it's good for you, right? Well, if you're in a space that gets impacted by people's paying power immediately, then it would certainly impact.
If you had to recommend any AI platform or tool that entrepreneurs and leaders should start looking at, which one would it be, or maybe multiple, whatever you want to recommend?
The product that we use most extensively in our company today is SalesRobo.ai. That automates all of our outreach,
Right.
and that is what I would recommend to everyone to use, obviously. Right. Beyond that, we experiment and use a lot more products, and we're pretty much experimenting with a different product every month, because there's a new one coming all the time. I personally use ChatGPT a lot, from tasks as simple as doing deep research on a question or on a topic of interest, to even drafting new contracts, right? And it's a ready reckoner. In our development teams, we use Claude, and we are beginning to experiment with Cursor for coding. It's giving really encouraging results. And our marketing teams continue using a number of different platforms for generating marketing content, marketing messages, marketing, collateral. So there isn't one platform that I would say that anyone should use. Depending on their biggest pain point, there is a solution out there which is on their fingertips, and they should definitely explore some.
So tell me about a scenario where you used a AI tool and you feel you used it very differently, and for a use case that's probably people are not really exploring much.
Well, I used an AI tool to do a deep research on comparing two investments that I'm trying to make.
Okay.
Right. And it gave me really interesting results. I had a plethora of documentation to go through for those investments, which in my wildest dreams I would not have completed in time. But when I gave it to the platform and I asked it to compare, it took just minutes to compare those two investments against each other, looking at the documentation that I provided, and also after doing a deep research on internet in a matter of minutes. And that really helped me, and that also amazed me on what is possible today with these tools.
If you could recommend certain books for tech entrepreneurs, whether it's building business, AI, deep tech, which are some of your favorite picks?
When I started, the books that really helped me learn about entrepreneurship and get off of a corporate mindset, and I'd worked in corporates at senior positions for long periods of time. Uh, it was not easy for me to let go of that baggage. The books that really helped me is 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel.
Of course.
That it is almost like the foundational book for all entrepreneurs.
Like it helps you push,
Yeah.
And start something.
Yep, absolutely. And it also helps you identify what to focus on, and mistakes that you can avoid, right? The other book that really helped me, especially as a bootstrapped company, is Lean Startup by Eric Ries. Again, principles of rapid iterations, staying with your MVP is something that really has helped us as we build this. And then there are some topical books or topical to AI. I look at Professor Andrew Ng's newsletter, the batch at deeplearning.ai, that gives me a lot of useful information about what's new in the AI world, what's the most cutting edge. So these are some of the resources that have helped me and continue helping me along this journey.
So we have come to an end of our podcast with Sandeep, and we had some very interesting insights into solutions for insurance, healthcare, as well as sales. So I'm hoping by the end of this podcast, you've gotten enough insights to help you sort of sell whatever you have built in different industries and understand different regulatory frameworks as well. So till the next time, see you, and don't forget to leave a comment if you have any thoughts.